Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In this video, imagine coming home from a 12-hour shift to find a weapon-free zone notice on your door specifically targeting your private property. My HOA Karen president decided to declare war on the Second Amendment, thinking she could bully me into submission. But she made one fatal mistake. She did not realize that I'm the one who actually enforces the law. The first one is titled Homeowner Association Karen called 911 to shut down my garage party. So this whole mess started about 8 months ago. I'd been living in an apartment downtown for years, but with the job getting more stressful and my need to decompress becoming more urgent, I decided that I needed some space. I wanted a garage, I wanted a yard, and I wanted somewhere that I didn't have to hear my neighbors arguing through paper-thin walls. I found a nice foreclosure in a decent area. It needed some work, but I'm handy, and the price was right. The only downside was the mandatory HOA, but I figured if I kept my head down, paid my dues, and kept the lawn green, nobody would bother me. I was wrong though. I'm a single guy in my early 40s and I have 2 German Shepherds, Rex and Bailey, and 2 cats who think they are dogs. I also ride a motorcycle. It is loud, a heavy cruiser that I've spent years customizing, and to the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood, I checked every single box on her undesirable list. Her name, let's just call her the president, was a nightmare from the moment the moving truck pulled away. She lived directly across the street from me. The first interaction we had was not a welcome wagon or a plate of cookies. It was her standing at the end of my driveway, clipboard in hand, staring at my truck. I walked over, wiped the sweat off my forehead, and introduced myself. I extended a hand, but she didn't take it. She just looked at my dogs, who were sitting calmly behind the gate I had just installed, and told me that aggressive breeds were frowned upon in this community, and I told her they were not aggressive, they were just big. She made a note on her clipboard and walked away without saying another word. That was day 1. Over the next few weeks, the fines started rolling in. It became almost a ritual. I would come home from a 12-hour shift exhausted, walk to the mailbox, and find a crisp white envelope. Inside there would be a note citing me for something trivial. One week my grass was too high, I measured it, it was exactly within the limits. The next week my trash bins were left out too long, the rules said they had to be in by 6 p.m, but I work shift work, so sometimes I don't get home until 8 p.m. or later if a booking takes too long. I tried to explain this to the board via email, explaining that my schedule rotates, but I got a generic automated response telling me that rules are rules and exceptions create anarchy. The president seemed to have made it her full-time job to monitor my existence. If I washed my bike in the driveway, she was watching from her window. If I had a friend over, she would drive by slowly in her beige sedan, peering into my garage. It was creepy, but I ignored it. Also, I keep my professional life and my private life very separate. I don't wear my uniform to and from work. I change at the station. When I'm home, I'm just a guy in jeans and a t-shirt. My neighbors knew that I worked for the city, but I don't think any of them knew exactly what I did. I like it that way. I mean, being a police officer tends to change how people treat you, and I just wanted to be a regular neighbor. The conflict escalated when she decided to declare war on the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner, obviously, given my profession. I carry a firearm daily. But I also collect historical firearms and enjoy sports shooting. One Saturday afternoon I was in my garage with the door open, cleaning a couple of my rifles after a range day. I was seated at my workbench, music playing low, wiping down the barrel of a bolt-action hunting rifle. When suddenly, a shadow fell across the workbench. I looked up to see the president standing right at the threshold of my garage. She looked horrified, her eyes were wide and she was clutching her scarf tightly. She demanded to know what I was doing and I told her I was cleaning my equipment. She pointed a shaking finger at the rifle and told me that guns were dangerous and she didn't feel safe knowing they were in the neighborhood. I politely told her that everything here was unloaded, I was on my private property and I was being safe about it. She did not care though. She told me that she was gonna bring this up at the next board meeting and that she would not tolerate a militia operating across the street from her house. I laughed in response, which was a mistake. She turned red, spun around on her heel and marched back to her house. 2 days later, a mass email went out to the entire community. It was a newsletter from the board and in bold red text at the bottom, it announced a new safety initiative. It claimed that the HOA was now a weapon-free zone and that residents were prohibited from storing assault weapons or military-grade firearms in their homes or garages. I actually snorted my coffee when I read it. I mean, you cannot retroactively ban legal ownership of firearms in private residences via an HOA newsletter. That's not how the law works. That is not how the Constitution works. I know the law. I enforce the law. And by the way, guys, if you would live in this neighborhood and if you would be, let's say, a gun enthusiast, what would you do if your HOA sent you a newsletter saying that owning guns is suddenly illegal in the HOA neighborhood? Also, if you enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much. I knew for a fact that her little rule was about as legally binding as a napkin scribble. A few weeks went by and things were relatively quiet. I was busy at work, we had a major case involving a ring of catalytic converter thieves that had us pulling double shifts, and when we finally cracked it and made the arrests, the whole squad was buzzing. We needed to blow off some steam, we needed a night to just be normal people, drink some beer, eat some bad food, and not think about paperwork or court dates for a while. I offered to host. I have a big driveway, a big grill, and a garage fridge that is always stocked. We planned it for a Friday evening. I invited about 15 guys from the department, most of them are patrol officers, a couple of detectives, and 2 K9 handlers who are good friends of mine. Friday rolled around, I spent the afternoon prepping the meat and getting the yard ready, and my buddies started showing up around 6 p.m. Now, you gotta understand the optics here. When 15 cops get together for a barbecue, we don't look like a church choir, we look like a bunch of large bearded dudes arriving on motorcycles and pickup trucks. We wear leather cuts, heavy boots and sunglasses. To the untrained eye, specifically the eye of a judgmental suburban tyrant, we probably looked like a biker gang taking over the cul-de-sac. We were being respectful though, the music was not loud, we were parked legally, not blocking any driveways. We were in the garage and the driveway laughing, telling war stories from the job and examining each other's bikes. It was a good time. About an hour in, I saw the blinds in the house across the street flutter. The president was watching. I waved. She didn't wave back. One of my buddies, Mike, had just bought a new off-duty carry piece. It was a compact pistol, really nice custom work. He wanted to show it to me, and we were standing in the garage. He cleared the weapon, safety checked it, and handed it to me. I was admiring the grip stippling when I heard a screech from the street. I looked up. The president was standing at the edge of my driveway, phone in hand, looking absolutely triumphant. She yelled that she had caught us. She shouted that she knew I was violating the new rules and that she had photographic proof of illegal weapons on the property. I walked down the driveway to talk to her. I still had the pistol in my hand, but completely safe. I realized how that looked, so I tucked it into my waistband at the small of my back before I got close to her. I asked her what her problem was, and she started screaming that she had banned guns in the neighborhood. She said I was harboring criminals. She pointed at Mike, who is 6'4" and covered in tattoos, but also one of the gentlest people I know, and called him a thug. She said she was gonna fine me thousands of dollars and place a lien on my house, then she dropped the ultimate threat. She said she was calling the police to have us all arrested and the illegal garage party gathering shut down. I tried to tell her, I really did. I said, "Ma'am, you really don't want to do that." She smirked. It was that smug superior look of someone who thinks they hold all the cards. She told me I was scared because I knew I was in the wrong. She dialed 911 right there in front of me, putting it on speakerphone so I could hear my doom approaching. I stood there and listened as she lied to the dispatcher. She didn't just report a noise complaint, she reported a violent gang disturbance. She said there were men with guns waving them around, threatening neighbors, and she said she feared for her life. She used all the buzzwords that guarantee a massive high-priority police response. The dispatcher asked if she was in a safe place. She said she was retreating to her home but could see us loading weapons. I just shook my head. Mike walked up behind me and asked if she actually just called it in, and I nodded. He started laughing. He went back to the garage and told the guys. The reaction was mixed. Half of them thought it was hilarious, the other half were annoyed. A man with a gun call is a no joke. It puts everyone on edge. He knew the response time would be fast given the nature of the call, and we knew the guys responding would be coming in hot. We need to be smart about this, I told the group. When they roll up, no sudden moves, hands visible, let's not get shot by the night shift. We decided to wait in the driveway, beer bottles down, empty hands. 10 minutes later, the cavalry arrived. And I mean the cavalry, because she had reported multiple armed men in a gang fight, and they didn't just send one car. They sent 4, a sergeant and 2 patrol units. The response was textbook. They didn't just roll up and park, they cut their sirens a block away to approach silently and then burst into the cul-de-sac with floodlights blinding us. Doors flew open. "Police, hands, let me see those hands." It was Officer Mueller, on point. He was a rookie. I had field trained myself 2 years ago, but right now he was all adrenaline. He was crouched behind his door, weapon drawn, pointed directly at my chest. "Everybody stay where you are," another officer shouted. The president came marching out of her house, pointing a finger at my garage, shouting to the officers, "That's them, that is the gang, they have guns." She ran towards Mueller, which is the worst thing you can do in a high-risk stop. "Ma'am, get back in your house," Mueller yelled. His eyes never leaving us. He was terrified. He saw 15 big guys in leather cuts and he was doing the math in his head, and I didn't move. I kept my hands high, palms open, and I needed to de-escalate this before a negligent discharge or something happened. "Mueller," I shouted using my command voice, "check your background, it's Sergeant OP. Stand down." Mueller froze, he blinked, trying to see past the glare of the spotlight. He lowered his weapon slightly, squinting. "Sarge?" "It's a barbecue, Mueller," I said, slowly lowering my hands. "Holster up." The tension in the air snapped like a rubber band and Mueller stood up looking confused. The other officers, recognizing my voice and seeing the faces of the gang members, started lowering their weapons. The sergeant on duty was a guy named Connor. We go way back. Connor walked up and saw the crowd, saw the gang, and started chuckling. "So this is the gang activity?" Connor asked, gesturing to my buddies. "Apparently," I said. "We're a menace to society, Connor." Mike brought potato salad that might violate health codes, but that's about it. The president was vibrating with rage and confusion. She stepped between me and Connor. She demanded to know why they were not arresting us. She screamed that we had guns. Connor looked at her calmly. He has that dad voice that stops drunk college kids in their tracks, and he asked her to lower her voice. He explained that owning firearms is legal in this state and that simply having them on private property is not a crime. She stomped her foot, like literally stomped it. She said the HOA rules banned them. Connor sighed. He explained very patiently that police enforce state and federal laws, not HOA bylaws. He told her that if she had a civil dispute with me, she could take it up with the management company, but calling 911 for a non-emergency was a misuse of the system. Then she made her fatal error. She doubled down on the lie. She pointed at Mike again and said, "He pointed a gun at me. I saw him. That's assault. I want him arrested." Now the atmosphere changed. The laughter actually stopped. Accusing a police officer of a felony is a serious thing. Mike stepped forward. He was not smiling anymore. "Ma'am," Mike said. Stepping into the light, he pulled his badge from his belt and held it up. "I'm Detective Kowalski, City PD. I have not pointed a weapon at anyone today, but you just committed a crime by making a false report." The president scoffed. She didn't believe him. She said that we were all lying to protect each other. She demanded to speak to the real police, implying the uniformed officers here were somehow in on the conspiracy. Connor looked at me. "She called 911 and reported an active threat with weapons, right?" "She did," I confirmed. "Speakerphone, I heard the whole thing." Connor turned to the president. "Ma'am, you initiated an emergency response based on false information," Connor said. "You claimed there were men waving guns and threatening neighbors. I've arrived on scene to find a gathering of off-duty law enforcement officers having a barbecue. No laws are being broken and no one is in distress." She went pale. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. They are police?" she whispered. "Every single one of them," Connor said, "including the homeowner whom you've been harassing." She looked at me. I gave her a little wave. "Hi, neighbor," I said. Connor continued, "We take false reporting very seriously. It pulls resources away from actual emergencies. Someone could be having a heart attack or getting robbed right now, but instead 4 units are here because you don't like your neighbor." She started backpedaling. She said she made a mistake. She said it looked like a gang. She said she was trying to protect the neighborhood, but Connor was not having it. He handed her a citation. It was a summons for misuse of 911. It's a misdemeanor, but it comes with a hefty fine and a mandatory court appearance. "You need to sign this," Connor said. She signed it with a shaking hand. She looked like she wanted the ground to open up and swallow her whole. The neighbors who were all watching this unfold were whispering and pointing. Her authority, her image as the protector of the community was evaporating in real time. Connor gave her a warning. "If we receive another call from you about this address that turns out to be false, I will personally ensure that we explore charges for harassment. Do you understand?" She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. She turned around and walked back to her house, head down, defeated. She didn't look back, and the officers stayed for a bit. I offered them burgers, but they were on duty and couldn't accept. They did hang out for 10 minutes to check with the guys, check out the bikes and catch up, but it turned into an impromptu department meeting in my driveway. It was actually pretty great. When they finally left, the party resumed. We were a little quieter, mostly because the adrenaline dump had worn everyone out. The guys thought it was the funniest thing that had happened all year. Mike kept joking that he was going to put gang leader on his business card, but the aftermath at work was just as good as the look on her face. For weeks, "Hey, is the HOA watching?" became the standard greeting when I walked into the precinct. Even the chief called me and shook his head and laughed about Karen trying to order a sergeant to arrest a detective. The legal fallout for her was significant. I was not there for her court date, but Connor told me about it. She tried to contest a ticket claiming she felt threatened, and the judge played the 911 recording where she was clearly embellishing the threat to get a faster response. The judge lectured her for 10 minutes about wasting police resources before upholding the fine and ordering her to pay court costs. A week later, I received a notice from the management company. I braced myself for a fine or something, but it was an apology letter. It stated that the board had reviewed the so-called weapon-free zone policy and determined it was inconsistent with state law and the community's governing documents. The policy was rescinded effective immediately. They also voided all my previous fines. Just all of them. The grass, the trash bins, everything. I suspect the management company realized that having a police officer as a resident who could potentially sue them for harassment was a liability they didn't want. But the real victory came at the next HOA meeting. I decided to attend still in uniform because I had come straight from work. During the open forum, a motion was made to remove the president from the board, but it was not made by me. It was made by the sweet old lady who lives 2 doors down. She cited mismanagement of funds and creating potential legal liability for the association. The vote was almost unanimous and the president was ousted. She gathered her things and left the meeting room in a huff, muttering about how ungrateful everyone was. Since then, life has been peaceful. The new board president is a guy who works in IT. He does not care about my motorcycles, but he likes my dogs. He even asked me for advice on home security systems, and the house next to the ex-president just went up for sale. I saw the for sale sign yesterday. I'm hoping a drummer or something moves in, maybe a guy with a really loud muscle car, but honestly, anyone will be better than the silence of a neighborhood held hostage by fear. I'm gonna head out to the garage now. Rex and Bailey are waiting, and the guys are coming over for another shop night. We will be loud, we will be happy, but we will be completely legal. So to all the HOA tyrants out there, before you go banning constitutional rights, maybe check who actually lives in that house with the loud motorcycle. Stay safe out there and watch your six. And the next one is a beautiful petty revenge story about super entitled neighbors that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "Neighbors Try to Own the Entire Street in Front of Their House." Not as petty as other posts here, but I can aspire to improve. So my neighbors to my left have been hellish old crazy since I moved here 5 years ago. We were cordial up until last summer, when the 70 to 75-year-old husband complained to my partner, for the second time mind you, because his friend had parked in front of the guy's house for 24 hours. Bachelor trip. Note, even with our friend parked there, both the husband and wife neighbors could also park their huge truck and jeep without any issues. So there's tons of room available, especially since the house on the other side of them doesn't have cars, so they can park in front of her place too. But whatever. Keep peace and all, so we don't park in front of their house if we can help it, just because they are not worth our time. But I knew that I was done pretending to be nice here. Yesterday was MLK Day. I heard a knock on our door at 8 AM, but it was a holiday and I was off work, so I kept sleeping. Later, when my partner left for therapy, the neighbor approached him and said, "Yeah, we called the cops on you because you guys keep parking too close to our car. He was gonna ticket you, but I said I'd talk to you first." My partner, always one to avoid drama, just shrugged and went to therapy. When he told me 4 hours later when he got home, I was skeptical. Number one, I was not parked illegally, nor was I close to the car. I was estimating about 2 feet of space between us, and I was also parked in front of my own house. If I was gonna be ticketed for that, I would have, or they would have left a note at my door. Also, I'm parked in front of my own house in our apron, no driveway but apron. What is the problem exactly? So being the trouble stirrer that I am, I went outside and bumped my car a little closer, so now there was only 1 foot between us. As I closed my car door, I even got some pageantry and threw up a peace sign and left hip lean towards their house. They have cameras covering every square inch, and the one on our front also covers my entire lawn, so they saw this. I also called the non-emergency line and asked to speak with the officer who came to my residence before, told him the story, and he laughed and sighed, saying that he was never gonna ticket me, and when he told our neighbor, he was grumpy and pissed off. They then offered to do the house checks for us since we leave for our honeymoon soon. Neat, right? So a few hours pass and suddenly there's a cop car in front of the neighbor's place. He called once again and showed the video to the cop, but he tried telling him that I was flipping him off versus doing a peace sign, but thankfully the cop is smart and knew the difference. The police officer then comes to our house. I let him in and tell him about the numerous threats, fear-mongering, aka how he also tried lying that this guy was gonna ticket me, and how he was acting so disrespectfully and immature to us that I was done pandering to these old people. Our neighbor to the right also has issues with them, more racially, as our a-hole neighbor is a racist and they are brown, so we are on the same page. I explained that I know the cop is innocent in this and is playing middleman, but since I'm doing nothing illegal or morally wrong, I will continue to park how I want. The cop alluded to continue doing what I was doing and make sure to avoid anything illegal, and I agreed and thanked him. Not super petty, I know, but this is the start, I bet. So I'm gonna keep parking 1 foot from their jeeps behind in front of my house, also over our apron to our non-existent driveway, and let him raise his blood pressure. Can't be good for his health in the long term. Also, if cops keep being called on me for legal doings, I would stop opening the door and be sure to file a harassment and restraining order. The cops know these people well since they call many times for other nonsense, and our neighbors to the right had to call them on the other neighbors because they were threatening them and their kids. Not all neighbors are like this, right? We plan to move in 1 to 2 years anyway, but I work from home and take joy in stirring pots, as you can see. And yeah guys, if you ever had any similar petty conflicts with your awful entitled neighbors, then please let us know about it in the comments. I would love to hear your story. And the next one is a pro revenge story, which is titled Gas Thief Revenge. So I had a neighbor that would walk into my backyard, take my gas can of gas for my mower, and then put it in his car and mower, and then return the can. I found this out because I had begun to be a little suspicious that this 5-gallon can was always nearly empty every time I went to mow the lawn, and it was only like a 1/4 tank on the lawn mower. Well, this was back before cheap easy security cameras, so I had set up a webcam from my laptop with motion detection software. So I caught the guy going into the backyard literally 5 minutes after I left the house, and for the next week, every time I had to take a pee, I peed in that gas can. Now full of pee, but still smells enough like gas to fool an idiot. Then I left it on the back patio again, made a big show of checking the fluids in my car, packing a few bags, and I made sure the neighbor knew I was getting ready to go on a trip and I'd be gone for a while. I was hoping he takes the bait. Well, I come back home in about an hour, car trouble, and the thief is in his front yard pulling the rope on his lawnmower so hard it looks like he's gonna have a stroke. Turning bright, red and cursing, later he gets in his car, makes it a couple blocks up the road, and it suddenly breaks down. I checked the gas can on my patio and it was empty. Also, I wanted to add, this guy was a huge piece of crap. That's not the only thing he did to me. I found out he had arrest warrant, so I ended up getting him arrested by applying for a sheriff's right, a long program in his name. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.